Story 1. My husband, 32M, is convinced I, 26F, am pregnant. I'm not, but he won't believe me. What do I do? I'm truly at a loss here. This situation has gotten worrying, and I don't know what to do with it. Since about a week, my husband became convinced I'm pregnant. I have no idea why, because I'm not. We haven't even started trying, though we do have plans in the future. We were just making conversation, and yeah, I did mention feeling tired. But that's all. A few hours later, he just came in so excited. I told him I'm not, but he won't let it go. He has made remarks about how happy he is, what a wonderful mother I'll be, what our baby will be like. Not all the time, but it has come up multiple times a day. I told him I'm not. I even took a test, because even I started wondering. And it was undoubtedly negative. I showed him, and he just got annoyed, said tests can be wrong. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. The next morning, he acted as if nothing happened. When I tell him I'm not, he just kind of shuts me out. I lost my shit yesterday when we were in bed, and he put his hand on my stomach, told him he's acting crazy. I'm not pregnant, and his behavior is scaring me. He went to sleep in the guest room after that and left for work early in the morning. I haven't seen him or spoken to him today. I'm just at a loss. I don't know where this obsession is coming from. I even asked him if I gained weight, if that's what's gotten him confused. He assured me I didn't. I'm thinking of contacting his parents. Or maybe a therapist or something. I honestly don't understand what's happening, and I'm worried about my husband. Edit, next day. Eat it. Thank you for all the replies. I didn't expect all this. It's been overwhelming, and I'm incredibly grateful. He's asleep next to me right now, and I keep going through all the comments. My husband is one of the kindest people I've ever met. I promise you all that he's not trying to manipulate me or would do anything to harm me. But that does make me believe something is really wrong. I'll contact Maya and his parents in the morning once he's left for work. Maybe go stay with my mom for a bit, though I hate the idea of leaving him like this. I also definitely will make an appointment with my doctor for a blood test. Thank you for all the advice. Relevant comments. To a longer comment addressing the fact that this could be a delusion and delusions can become violent. OOP. Oof. This reply hit me hard. I appreciate it a lot. I'm very torn. I love my husband very much and am worried about him right now, but I feel increasingly uncomfortable at home as well. Commenter, downvoted. The whole phantom pregnancy thing usually only affects women, but one supposes a guy could have it too. Obviously, as time goes on and you don't produce a bump or a baby, he'll recognize that you're not pregnant. But this probably isn't some profound mental illness on his part, just the fervid wish that you could both start working on becoming parents soon. Maybe talk to him about your timeline. At 32, he's probably just more in the ready-to-be-dad phase of life than you are in the ready-to-mom phase at 26. So remind him that you've still got time. OOP. Downvoted. I'll try to do that. It just feels like such a weird response to wanting a child. Commenter replying to OOP. This is not an urgent enough response to what seems like a pretty serious delusion. This behavior isn't normal or explicable in reasonable terms. OOP. Fair. It is very unlike him. I might call my mom, ask her if I can stay with them for a bit, if only to get all of this sorted. I just want him to snap out of it. I miss my husband as I know him. Commenter. Would he harm you if he thought you got an abortion? Because that's a possibility. He may accuse you of having an abortion if you get medical confirmation that you're not pregnant after he's decided that you are. OP. I hadn't even thought of that, sorry. Thanks for your reply. Commenter. The first time I got pregnant, my husband knew before I did. He had a feeling. Home test said negative, but a blood test showed positive. OP. Oh my, that's wild. Either way, I'll meet with my gyno, if only to have some conclusive proof that I'm not. Mini update 1 in comments. August 7th, 2024. Things escalated yesterday, but I'm with my mom and his parents are at our place. Update post. August 9th, 2024. Hi everyone. I hope it's okay I post this update. I really appreciate everyone asking if I'm safe, and I am. I wish I could give clear answers, but I can't. Things escalated when I tried to speak to him, keeping some of y'all's advice in mind. I sat him down and explained to him that I'd love to have kids with him in the future, but that I'm not pregnant right now, and that his insistence worries and scares me. I told him we could go to the doctor together if that would put his mind at ease, or I could take another test in front of him. I was just hoping to snap him out of it somehow. He got very agitated, said many hurtful things, and accused me of being a liar many times, that I'm trying to keep our baby away from him, and so on. Nothing made sense, and I wasn't feeling safe anymore. I knew my husband would never harm me in any way, but that wasn't my husband. Things got worse. He did hurt me, but nothing permanent or even emergency care-worthy. I also know that if he was in his right mind, he never would have done anything like this. I called mine and his parents, and I'm now staying with my mom. He did seem to calm down a bit when his parents arrived. I haven't spoken to him since then. His mother, she's an angel, is keeping me posted about everything. We all agree something is very off about him, and we don't know what it is. But he hasn't agreed to getting himself checked out in any way. I don't know how they'll go about it, but they say, and I painfully have to agree, that it's best to keep my distance for a bit, as most of it is aimed at me. I'm safe. So is he. I miss him so much and just want an answer as to why he's being like this. I keep trying to figure out if there were signs before, or what I did wrong. Thank you all for the replies. They were a great help. It's so kind you cared to ask if I'm safe. Relevant comment. Commenter, let's pray it's not drugs, since he refuses to get checked out. I'm so sorry, OP. I hope everything gets better soon. I don't know if going back to him is a good idea, though. He physically hurt you. OP. I do think that whatever is causing this is the reason he hurt. We've been together for some years now, and he's never even raised his voice at me up until this. OOP responds to many commenters and thanks them. Thanks. I've been reading all the comments. You guys are all so kind to me. But I'm scared shitless about what it could be, reading everyone's experience. Mini Update 2 in comments. August 11th, 2024. He has apparently agreed to get himself checked out, but I haven't heard anything else. Mini Update 3 in comments. August 15th, 2024. He's in the hospital. Many people were right about it being a medical issue. I'll get more into it at some point, maybe. But first need to see what's going to happen with him. I've seen him a couple of times. Sometimes he's his normal self, sometimes he can't stand the sight of me. We're managing somehow. Update Post 2, August 16th, 2024. I don't know if anyone will see this here, but you've all been so kind to keep asking whether or not we're okay. I hope I'll reach you like this. I'm going to keep this short. My husband has a brain tumor. A lot of people commented this, and I feel an immense amount of guilt that I hadn't considered it till then. All the headaches and other symptoms, in hindsight, we had previously dismissed because of his stressful work situation and so on. I'm beating myself up that I hadn't seen it before. A wonderful team of neurosurgeons, oncologists, and other physicians is figuring out the best approach here, if there is one. We'll hear more in the next days. I've spent more time with my husband. Some moments he's his amazing self, others he's filled with anger. It's difficult, but we're managing. I wouldn't have been able to without the support of our friends and family. I love my husband. This situation is terrifying. In moments of clarity, he's trying to make me laugh, so I don't worry. That's who he is. Thank you everyone for pushing me to get him checked out. Relevant comment. OP clarifies, I'm home now, but my husband's in the hospital. Commenter. In his moments of clarity, does he recognize how he's been acting? Or is there always some level of reality distortion? OOP. He seems mostly very confused, if that makes any sense. He has apologized, but his mind is just not working with him right now. Commenter. OP, this is not the first time I've seen a thread on Reddit where a brain tumor caused significant behavior changes. I hope the surgeons are able to remove it and your husband's previous personality comes back. Have the doctors given you any info on what to expect after the tumor has been removed? OOP. Right now, it's the question if it can be removed. There's a lot we don't know right now. The doctors, nurses have been incredibly kind, though. Side post, September 8th, 2024. Title: I'm irrationally angry at my husband for having a brain tumor. I can't say these feelings out loud, not to the people around me, so I hope it's okay I do it here. But I'm furious with my husband for getting sick. I know he's not to blame, I know he's suffering, yet I'm still furious with him. I can't explain it. He's the love of my life. How dare he get sick? How dare he change anything about the wonderful life we have planned? How dare he leave me so much sooner than when we're old and senile? 2 months ago, our life was perfect. How could everything get so horrible so fast? I love him so much it hurts. And because of that, I'm so angry with him right now. I feel like a horrible person. Update. Post 3, September 17th, 2024. It's 2 a.m. here, so I apologize if this is not V-coherent. I'm going to step away from all social media, and I wanted to leave you with a brutally honest update. It's silly, but y'all's support has meant a lot to me. Don't get me wrong, I have wonderful family and friends, but in a way I have to comfort them too, and I can't deal with it right now. My husband is dying. In the 5 weeks since his diagnosis, he's gotten worse quickly. Today, the decision has been made not to continue treatment, or even properly start it. He's not strong enough. He has a month, maybe, if we're lucky. I'm furious at the world right now, and I'm furious at him, which makes me an enormous bitch, because what kind of person is angry at their husband for being ill? I love him so much, and I hate him for it. I'm sorry this isn't a better update. Wish you all the best. Relevant comment. Top commenter, fucking hell, I'm so sorry. I remember hoping it was schizophrenia and not a tumor. I'm still kinda hoping this is someone's creative writing venture, but I'm still fucking devastated for you. I know tears from a stranger on the internet aren't really a comfort, but they're still falling for you. I lost my little sister a few years ago. I love her so much. She was my world. I was like a half-parent to her. I was planning my life on having her live with me. And after the very quick progression of an unknown illness, she was gone. I still can only imagine what you're going through. I'm so sorry. I hope you're already linked with palliative care. They're some amazing people. Take it literally 1 second at a time, then 1 minute, then an hour, then a day. I was taking it an hour at a time for months after she died, and I still sometimes go day by day. If you can get grief counseling, go ASAP. I did phone sessions, can give you more info if you are in Australia. I mainly used my sessions to just talk about my sister, to tell stories and remember her, to have someone new know her. Sending you love and light. OP. This comment means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm sorry for what you've been through. Our medical team has been incredible, even dealing with my emotions with a lot of patience. I just wish this wasn't the path we had to take. Commenter. Grief has different stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. You are in the anger stage, totally justified after the things you went through before diagnosis. You are angry because you are being robbed of the future together with your husband. Also, you know it's a hard road ahead that you didn't think would happen until you were both old and gray. I don't have advice for you, and I am so sorry you are going through this. Your feelings are normal and valid if that helps a tiny bit. Maybe speaking to a professional may help you also. Update. Post 4, October 27th, 2024. Title. He passed. He passed on the 16th. We had his funeral shortly after. Thank you for the messages. Wishing you all the best. Story 2. Ex-BF and I were van-lifing across country. He kicked me and all my stuff out last week. I am now 2 states away and have his dad's watch. He's demanding I deliver it to him. So, yeah, like title says, we were both remote workers and decided that we could van life and see things while still working. We lasted about a month, and last week he flipped out over the way I sipped my coffee and told me I had to leave. I thought he meant like we would pack up and figure out how to get me home. No, he meant I needed to get out with all my shit in the middle of a state park in New Mexico and figure it out. I was scared and pissed, so I hurriedly packed everything and got out. A very nice older couple had heard the screaming and saw me with a pile of my stuff and asked if I needed help. I said yes, and they said they would drive me to Albuquerque in their RV and we could figure out what would happen next. Well, it turns out they are the sweetest people ever, and we eventually came to the conclusion it would be easier for me to travel with them home to Kansas, and now they've allowed me to stay, paying them insanely fair rent, food, etc. I just have to edit the wife's book and help the husband with his guitar playing. Well, it turns out in the hurry of packing, I grabbed my ex's watch. That was his dad's. I got in touch with him and told him I was sorry. It was truly an accident, and I had no intention of keeping it. How would he like me to get it to him? He said I needed to meet him in Utah. I said that was ridiculous. I could send it to him. He said that it was too valuable to trust to mail or FedEx and needed to be hand-relieved. I said I was in Kansas and not coming to Utah, but I would return the watch to his brother when I go home in March. He said no, the only solution was for me to drive it to him. I said I didn't even have a car. He said, "You're probably fucking half of Lawrence. Use one of theirs." At that point, I blocked him. The watch is pretty valuable and has a lot of sentimental value, and I will return it. It was my oversight that I have it in the first place. What are my obligations to follow his instructions to get the watch back to him? Edit. Wow, this blew up! For the people asking, it is a lower-end Rolex watch. It still has all the original box and even receipt when his dad bought it, but it was well worn, so he's never been sure how much it's worth. I guess a few hundred, maybe 1,000, so I'm not sure. I'm not going to keep it or destroy it since it's not mine in any way. Top comments. Che Brajman, you gave reasonable options. Let's say he files a police report that you stole it. You have proof that you contacted him and asked where you could send it. He declined. Never too much thought. Dude sounds like a psychopath. Do not under any circumstances willingly meet up with him in person ever again. Don't let him know where you live. This level of douchery is a sign of something being very off, and you don't want to be there again when he short-circuits again. You were extremely lucky to have found the people you did. Who knows where you'd be if that had not happened. Update February 6, 2022. So I posted exactly a week ago. Link below, but short story was I was van living with ex-boyfriend. He kicked me out after temper tantrum, and I caught a ride with some awesome people. I discovered I has ex's dad's watch that had lots of sentimental value. I told him, asked where I should send it. He demanded I drive from Kansas to Utah and return it even though I don't have a car. Well, so lots of mixed advice, but most people said best option was to contact his brother. Before I did that, I decided to unblock my ex just to give him one more chance to give me an address where I could ship the watch. Actual text conversation. Me. Hey, I'm sorry I blocked you. I just didn't appreciate the insults, but I want to get her dad's watch back. Can you let me know where to send it? I'll pay for shipping, no problem. Like less than 30 seconds later. Him. I stashed the watch in your bag because I wanted to prove to myself what an awful person you are and good job at proving me right again. I was like, wow. So many people in the original said that he probably put the watch in my stuff as I was packing in order to force communication and force the opportunity to see him again. Well, you were exactly correct. I didn't even respond to his text and blocked him again. I have no intention of keeping the watch, so I decided now it was time to contact his brother, who, along with his wife, has always been very nice to me. He was super appreciative, and we spent a couple days going back and forth figuring out the shipping, but the watch arrived to him on Friday and all is good. He even Venmo'd me $1,000 for being so honest contacting him, etc. I make really good money, so I told him it wasn't necessary at all, but he insisted, so we agreed to donate it to a food pantry here in Lawrence. But I'm still so creeped out thinking at the day when he kicked me out of the van and he was screaming at me, calling me all sorts of names. He's scheming to stay in touch with me. He was slamming all my stuff into bags, but that was cover for him hiding the watch. The fact that it was so deliberate, yet he thought of it so quickly, is so scary to me. We got along so well before we left, and he always seemed like such a great guy. I don't know if the confined space of the van is too much for any couple or if it brought out a side of him I didn't know was there. Makes me sad and scared at the same time, but relieved it's over. Relevant comment. General Ace 135. He framed you. To prove to himself that you were awful? He's dumb enough to fall for his own frame job? I really truly can't wrap my head around how stupid he must be. Pistachio Panda 4. What I don't get is his logic that this would prove OP's a bad person. How the fuck was she supposed to know about the watch when you kicked her ass out in a state she didn't know about it until after she got to safety, possibly thousands of miles away? Like you thought she was just going to be running back to you? Fuck that dude. Rachel Green Hairdryer. I think in his batshit crazy mind she was bad to not instantly head to Utah to return it. He's clearly insane. Story 3. My 28F boyfriend, 30M, erased the whiteboard I had my novel timeline on. 3 years. I have been working on a novel for about a year. I write every day, even just a sentence. 6 months ago, my college switched to smartboards and put all their whiteboards in the garbage. I grabbed 2 because I have a huge wall space open in my living room. Most of my writing is done on my Google Drive, but I have things like character personalities, names, places, a general timeline, etc. You know, stuff I want to remember. I used to take photos of it, so I had my ideas with me. I used to write on my lunch break. I stopped doing that because I burn myself out and my writing quality takes a huge dive. Plus, my boyfriend helps me write, and it helps us connect in such a deep way. So I haven't taken a photo in about 3 months. The whiteboards are nice because I can read my notes across the room while I'm sitting in my favorite chair. I got home last night and all of my stuff was erased. It was all train of thought, like I'd come home and jot something down. Handwriting is way more cathartic for me. I had sketches of things in the novel. I'd basically have to go through and remember every single thing on it. I have a lot of it stored in my head or on my Google Drive, but there are some things I'll never get back. But it's the fact he erased it. We don't live together. He told me I've been focusing too much on it and have no time for him. We hang out at my house 5-6 nights a week. I write while he plays video games. It's a good dynamic, and I thought we enjoyed it. We are always laughing, and he helps me with my wording, and I Google stuff to help him in his game. This is the first time he's mentioned it bothering him. If he had brought it up, we could have talked about it. But he went nuclear, and I have no idea why. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. We have had one serious argument over his driving. He got better. My family took him on vacation a few weeks ago. We watch his nephew all the time. His family paid for my entire spring semester. We are so much a part of each other's lives, and I feel so hurt and heartbroken. He's my muse, and just the other day we went to the jewelry store to look at rings. My feelings rotate between rage, sadness, confusion, sorrow, anger, everything. How do I even approach this? Last night I was so upset I asked him to leave. He hasn't texted, he hasn't called, he hasn't stopped by. I keep typing in questions to ask, but I keep erasing them. Why did you do it? Are you unhappy with our relationship? What did I do? I'm even more heartbroken due to the fact he hasn't called or texted all day. I'm afraid to call him. I don't want to hear him say he thinks we should break up, or he doesn't want to be with me when I'm writing, or just ignore my call. TLDR. Boyfriend erased the whiteboard I use for my novel writing. He hasn't contacted me at all since it happened. I'm totally lost and heartbroken and angry. How do I possibly handle this? Top comment. 4B3 adds, "Holy crap. As a fellow writer, I'd be livid if I were you. This is the first time he's mentioned it bothering him. If this is true, and he jumped straight to sabotage, this is fucked up. It's messed up regardless because I'm sure your boyfriend knows how important this work is to you. Like, for him to not try to talk to you about this after 3 years is mind-boggling. Who does this? Text him the dreaded "we need to talk" message. Ask him when he's available and have him come over to use his words like a goddamn adult. Also, take his key away or change your locks if you don't want to be that upfront about it. He lost his privileges. TBH, though, in all sincerity, IDK, if this is something I could move past. It comes off as so cruel. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he chose to go into your home when you weren't there because he knew he was doing something wrong. He either knows he fucked up or he feels as though he's in the right, and that's why he hasn't reached out to you. I'm shocked and appalled on your behalf, OP. Relevant comment. The darkest beer. This was an unbelievably fucked up way to deal with those feelings. I hate your boyfriend right now. Remember in Little Women when Amy burned Joe's book because Joe wouldn't let her come to the theater with her? That was pretty messed up, but ultimately Amy was a child, and she would grow up and be better. Your boyfriend can't do better than the most hated March sister. He's showing you that when he doesn't get his way, he will punish you and destroy the things you care about. This isn't an isolated incident. It's an important piece of information about his character. If he comes back with a massive apology and a plan for how he's going to deal with his feelings in the future in a non-destructive way, then maybe I'd say it's worth a conversation about continuing this relationship. OP. I actually haven't read Little Women, but I ordered it for my Kindle. It's just so out of the blue part of me wonder if there's something going on with him beyond what he said. I don't know. Bubblegum Cannibal. This is really fucked up. As another fellow writer, I honestly would have broken down. That's so much work just down the drain just because you wanted to get your work completed? It's ridiculous. Honestly, if it were me, I'd have to fist-fight the guy after I've stopped crying over destroyed work. Going with what 4B3 at said, definitely take his key away. There's no doghouse or you can get this back when you earn it back about it. I've personally been in this situation where I've had my old novella notebooks used in a grill fire, and with truth, I've never accepted the apologies. The person isn't even a friend to me anymore. Not saying you should dump him or break ties with him in general. Oh, not at all. However, I do say there should be a conversation about the relationship in here somewhere. If he can't handle you being immersed in something you've put years into, something you love, he's not ready to date any type of creator, to be quite honest. It's scary that he honestly thought that destroying anything that looked remotely important was the best thing to do in the situation. But when you regain yourself, try and retrace your steps now that he's hiding from you. Try and rebalance your world building. Some new things might even come out of it. Keep your head up, friend, and hopefully you can pull back some information and crawl back from there. It'll be difficult, but you can do it, OP. OP. He stood there and he seemed so, I don't know, proud, happy, vindicated. I've had my jaw drop once before in my entire life. To the ventriloquist girl who was on America's Got Talent, LOL, I didn't know it was an actually feeling of shock, awe. It did last night right before I blanked out and woke up face down on my bed asking him to leave. Opie edited the post. Edit. Holy cuss, you guys. I am absolutely overwhelmed. I'm not even sure what to say. I asked a girlfriend if I could come over and talk, so we are getting some wine and a pizza. Update, November 8th, 2017. It's been about 3 months since I made my post. This somehow seems like it got really long. The night I made my post, I went to a friend's house and she ordered a pizza. We got ice cream and a bottle of wine. She's a straight shooter, takes a neutral approach, and she gives solid relationship advice, so I felt comfortable talking to her about everything. She couldn't figure out why he'd done it. We went over how he and I hung out, how much he seemed to care about me, how we looked into each other's eyes, but it also revealed a lot of hesitation on my part. I'm a positive person and tend to forgive faults or overlook them. I suspect it's some sort of coping method from my childhood. We had some unresolved issues I think he was holding in, but when I'd bring them up, he'd just get kind of salty and go, "It's fine, I don't care anymore," but he'd bring them up in arguments. I didn't realize how toxic it was. That same night, I told him I was coming over the next day to talk about things. I told him I'd be over around 11, and the only thing he texted me was okay, which I didn't respond to. I went over to his house at 11 and he was still asleep. He got upset when I woke him up. It took the wind out of my sails. On a good day I cry if something upsets me, but I was so angry and heartbroken I couldn't even think. I left without saying a word to him. He didn't follow me. On my way out I went to the kitchen and took my house key from his key ring. I drove home in a daze, collected all his things, put them in a box on my porch, and texted him to come get them. He said, "What the hell? That's fine, I'll come by later and pick them up." I went out with a few girlfriends. We got day drunk and had some amazing food. It made me feel better, but when I got home and his things were gone, I was heartbroken. I never texted him. He never texted me. I got absolutely no closure. And even though people say closure is bullshit, I've had the hardest time moving on. It's been 3 months and I still cry in the shower sometimes. Even though I broke up with him, I still feel so confused and heartbroken. I never figured out why he did what he did. I likely never will. And I miss his help and companionship. I'd love to come here and say I finished my book, but I haven't written much since. I can't get into my characters' heads anymore. There's a feeling of loneliness and grief, and that's sort of helped me create a better outline. But I can't write about my characters. The other day I went to the bookstore to study. I ended up looking at books related to time travel and found one that has thousands of positive reviews. My novel is science fiction, and I've been trying to think of how to incorporate time travel. So it kind of lined up perfectly. It turns out a lot of my ideas mirror theoretical physics. It's eerie. I've never taken physics or read about it. Suddenly string theory makes sense. Cosmology makes sense. I'm blown away, and it makes me feel so weird that so much of my plot has been studied so in depth. The book has lit a fire under me. Reading more about everything makes me so excited, and it's helped me really flesh out my plot. I can't put it down and read 20 or so pages a night. I haven't actually made time to sit and read a book for years. I always have a notebook with me now, so I write my ideas down. I haven't written about my characters yet, but my passion is back. My plot is making more sense. Now, I don't care much about how we broke up. I'm not confused. I sometimes get sad at night, or during the day, or if I go out and make prolonged eye contact with a guy. I haven't thought about dating, and I'm still too hurt to pursue it. But every day, I move on a little bit more. I wanted to thank everyone who gave me advice. I forgot about my post until just now, and when I went back through the read it made me realize how seriously messed up it was. And it gave me closure. Thank you. TLDR. My ex-boyfriend erased my ideas for a book. I broke up with him and haven't heard from him at all, and had trouble finding closure. I had trouble writing for the last few months, but recently got that fire back in my belly. It took some time, but I found myself again. Story 4. My new employee ran a background check on me and asked me about what he found plus 5-year update. I started a new position recently and was promoted quickly to a management position. Great. I have a long supervisory background, looking forward to helping in a wider capacity. One of my direct reports is a very conscientious and ambitious young man named Scott, who I have found pleasant to work with. Last week, during a normal conversation about a project, Scott brought up that he had done a background search on me and then asked me about an arrest on my record. An insurance snafu that led to a driver's license snafu, and when I was pulled over for a normal traffic stop in a rather conservative county, I spent a night in lockup, which was both humiliating and illuminating. This is not immediately Googleable. I gave it a try myself after he brought it up, and some of the specificity of the details he used leads me to believe he went to one of the publicly available background report sites and paid the nominal fee to obtain a detailed report. His question was framed as that he had been doing some research and wanted to clarify what happened in X state, because it wasn't clear if the arrest, was in X or Y state. I lived in Y state more recently, but there's nothing easily found that links the two without paying for it. In the moment, I answered truthfully that these items were from more than a decade ago and were the result of a particular set of circumstances. I then excused myself from the conversation and returned to my office. The longer I think about it, the more weirded out I am. Scott would like to advance, and I feel like a follow-up conversation is definitely warranted. But I'm struggling with an approach aside from, "Hey, you super violated a boundary for me, and that will go over like a ton of bricks if you do it with future managers." To be fair, this is an overtly aggressive office culture, and asking to explain your professional background in a fair amount of detail to coworkers' employees is par for the course. But while I understand having a background check run by the company during the hiring process, I'd like to keep my personal background personal. And while I'm not wild about discussing this embarrassing incident, my reaction was more of a, "How and why did you obtain this information?" than a deep, dark secret that I'm worried might come to light. How do I let go of my weirded out feeling, and how do I best address this in a follow-up conversation? Update October 24th, 2024. Imagine my surprise when I opened the blog today to find you had re-released my letter. I felt an update was owed to the commentariat. I can't tell you how much I appreciated your advice on this peculiar situation. It was a much-needed grounding and reminder of what normal should look like. While I was not able to participate when the post was originally published, I did read every single comment. Your point about questionable judgment was spot on. Scott was indeed a younger employee and deeply convinced of the superiority of his own intellect and gender. He had a 5, 10, and 15-year life plan with ambitious goals. Unfortunately, this was coupled with no more sense than God gave a goose. His previous work experience in an unrelated field left him the impression that it was absolutely reasonable to deeply examine the people around him, but then verify his findings through research. As part of his 5-year plan, he was applying for many roles within the company in search of advancement, despite not having relevant experience nor demonstrating development in any key skill areas. As mentioned in my letter, I was hired on in a line-level position, and then promoted to a management position within a couple of months. In that industry, career advancement is often tied to reassignment in diverse geographic locations, going where the work is, and arriving at a new location is accompanied by sharing bona fides with the team to build connections. Imagine you've worked for 20 years for the same company, but have moved 8 times and never worked in the same place with the same team more than 2 years in a row. I had spent a great deal of time grabbing opportunities as they arose, living out of suitcases and working far, far too much. I had garnered some nice accolades in some faintly glamorous locales, but anyone who has done it knows that the luster is surface level only. Scott was intensely interested in my career experience and how I progressed in the field. Coupled with his desire for promotion and deeply flawed perceptions around reasonable follow-up, this led to the rather extraordinary situation I wrote in about. Armed with the knowledge that Scott was about as intuitive as a pile of bricks, I was planning a follow-up conversation the next time we worked together. He beat me to the punch when he asked me again about the information he had found as soon as I approached his desk, this time with a copy of my booking photo pulled up on his screen. I reacted much more decisively this time, telling him to close the browsing window immediately and pulling him into the office for a one-on-one conversation. Looking back, I think I used your phrasing almost verbatim around work boundaries and everyone deserving privacy. Scott was mostly confused by this response. In his view, it was perfectly reasonable to look for deeper information about almost anyone. His rationale behind asking me about what he'd found was he wanted to alert me this information was out there. I told him it was unacceptable behavior and demonstrated incredibly poor judgment that he'd dig this far into any colleague, much less his manager. Then to bring it up multiple times. The company completed background checks for every employee. If they had proceeded with the hire, one would assume that nothing relevant was in the report. I also let him know this was such an egregious situation, we would be documenting both conversations and issuing a write-up, and this endangered his future with the company. After distance from the situation, I genuinely believe Scott was an incredibly intelligent person demonstrating that anyone can be an absolute idiot. Did I document the situation in detail? Absolutely. Did I discuss this with HR and my boss? Absolutely, and she was ready to fire Scott. HR was flabbergasted and incredibly helpful in their handling of the situation. My documentation plan was supported with the agreement that Scott was on his final chance. Did Scott get promoted into another position? Not while I was there. After this incident, he did demonstrate an earnest desire to improve as a team member and make amends. We parted on decent terms. I actually wound up suggesting he read AAM regularly. Unfortunately, my industry was one devastated by the pandemic. I wrote the letter in mid-2019. By March of 2020, almost my entire professional network was either unemployed or being overworked as skeleton staff. Driven by necessity, I grabbed a copy of Allison's book, How to Get a Job, and after giving some serious consideration about what I'd like out of my work moving forward, I retooled my resume and got to hunting. I've successfully transitioned to a new, very different industry and landed a position with a great company. It offers a much better work-life balance and more reasonable employee culture. While I do sometimes miss my old career, my situation is much improved and I've been quite happy to be settled down. I have no idea where Scott has landed, but I wish him well. I will not be Googling him. Story 5. I-35M was incarcerated and lost touch with 33F. It's been over 10 years. Would it be wrong to contact her now? Sorry for any mistakes. English is not my first language. When I was a university student, I fell in love with Daria. Not her real name, obviously. She was the little sister of my best friend, so I considered her off limits, but my crush on her persisted and grew. She's one of those beautiful, brilliant people who is alive and breathing to make the world a better place. How could I not be drawn to that? One day she told me she had feelings for me, and to my relief, my best friend didn't have a problem with me dating his sister either. So for 2 wonderful years, Daria was my girlfriend. I should have asked her to marry me. I don't know why I didn't. I suppose I thought I had all the time in the world. We were young, and there was no need to rush things. We lived in a country that isn't exactly democratic, and we were political activists. I ended up getting arrested and going to prison for 9 years. Please don't think I'm some kind of monster for this. I don't want to go into detail in case it makes me identifiable somehow, but we didn't hurt anyone or do anything immoral. What we did is not even illegal in the country where I currently live, and our beliefs were far from extremist. I haven't seen or spoken to Daria since the day I got arrested. My best friend died shortly after, and Daria left the country partly due to the possibility that she'd be arrested too. There wasn't any way for her to contact me while I was in prison, though apparently she contacted my dad a few times in the beginning. Things got even worse in our country while I was incarcerated, so my dad and I emigrated when I was released. We've been living in Western Europe ever since, and life is pretty okay. I live with my dad, and I have a steady, if shitty, job. Months ago, I found Daria online. She lives in a neighboring country, 7 hours away by rail. She doesn't use social media too much, but from what I've seen, there's no evidence of a partner or kids. And even if she's married, I'd be content just to be her friend, as I was for the first years we knew each other. Part of me desperately wants to reach out to her, and my dad has been encouraging me to do so, but I feel like it'd be too selfish. The circumstances of her brother's death were very traumatic for her, and I'm afraid that I'm just a living reminder of all the bad things that happened to us. And if she does have a partner, would my contacting her offend him and trouble their relationship? I don't want to cause her any more sadness. Time stood still for me while I was in prison, but I know it didn't for her or anyone else. She's done so well for herself. She's built a whole life, and I don't want to derail that life just because I feel entitled to a place in it. She might not even remember me at all. And even if she did invite me back into her life, I'd be nothing but a burden now, owing to my wrecked mental health. We've been apart twice as long as I knew her. Have I even the right to miss her as much as I do? For now, I've contented myself with Googling her name every so often and seeing that she's okay. It just hurts a lot, and I don't know how to make it not hurt. I still love her with everything I have. I probably always will. Should I reach out to her or leave her alone? If I do contact her, what should I even say? Tell DR. Unsure whether I should contact my old girlfriend now that I'm free from prison. Update. 135M was incarcerated and lost touch with. 33F. I contacted her and she responded. January 26, 2023. The short version is that I was wondering whether I should try to contact my former girlfriend after I went to prison for a long time. The consensus was that I should, and people gave very good advice on how to do that. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who offered advice or kind words. I had spent so long feeling ashamed about my situation and expecting most people to react very negatively if they knew. I had barely discussed it with anyone before, except my dad and people whose job it is to help me, lawyers, therapists, etc., and I was very surprised to be met with so much compassion from a bunch of complete strangers. Thank you, truly. Several people asked for an update, and that's the least I can do in return. I sent Daria a message the evening after I made my post. It was something like, I don't mean to intrude, but I wanted to say hello and thought I would give you my new contact information in case you ever felt like getting in touch. If not, that's completely fine, too. I left her my mobile number and email address, wished her well, and that was that. I knew it might be a while before she responded, if she responded at all, so I tried to put it out of my mind. Early Monday morning, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number from the country where Daria lives. Who else would ever be calling me from there? I panicked a little bit, but I managed to answer in time. She asked a few times if it was really me, and I couldn't tell if she was laughing or crying. At first, she called me by the very affectionate version of my name she used to. But then she quickly apologized and corrected herself, which broke my heart a little bit. It was an awkward phone call, but not in a bad way. I was extremely nervous, and it seemed like she was too. But happy also. Some of you mentioned that Daria would want to know that I was safe, and this was more true than I could have guessed. Because unrest in my country increased a lot during the last year I was in prison. She was afraid that they would decide to quietly kill me rather than let me go. There are documented cases of other prisoners like me having met very suspicious ends in the months before my release, so it wasn't a totally unreasonable worry. She also said she repeatedly tried to send me parcels of supplies and put money on my commissary account, but her attempts were rejected without explanation. After my sentencing, I was not allowed to receive correspondence or to have a commissary account at all because of the classification of my crimes, so she was forced to give up. She told me this as an apology, as if I would have been disappointed with her for not helping me more. I had no idea she had done any of that. I do know that it was not a safe thing for her to do, and I feel terrible that she put herself at risk trying to make me a little more comfortable. She didn't seem to want to talk about what happened any more than that, and so we didn't. We changed the subject to more light-hearted things. Our jobs, the cities where we live, how my dad is adapting to a new country, etc. When she arrived at work and had to end the phone call, she asked if I wanted to continue talking through a messaging app. Obviously, I said yes, and downloaded it immediately. We sent messages throughout the day, and she even interrupted her commute home to send me a picture of a restaurant modeled after one of my favorite books just because she thought I would like it. She told me that she thought of me every time she saw it, but unfortunately the restaurant itself was not so good. I was afraid she wouldn't remember me, but she even remembers the things I like to read. She remembers a lot of little things, even stuff I forgot. We have been sending messages back and forth ever since, and talking on the phone after I finish work at night until she gets too sleepy. Sometimes it feels like I'm 24 and she's texting me from a few blocks away, as if the next thing she might ask is what's for dinner. Other times it seems like we're trying to will dead versions of ourselves back to life in order to avoid acknowledging what we've lost. She seems a lot more timid than she used to, more passive, which I suppose makes sense. Sometimes I worry about how much I've changed, and that maybe she won't find anything left in me that's worthy of her. But if I could express in words what it feels like to hear her laugh, I could explain that there's also a lot that we know very well. She hasn't lost her kindness or her warmth or her empathy. She still cares about me, and I still care about her. I know that rebuilding a friendship after all that's happened will take lots of patience, and I have plenty to spare. I'm just happy to have the chance to get to know her again. This morning, Daria asked if I want to have a video call sometime this weekend. I agreed, but I'm ashamed to admit that as much as I want to see her, I'm very nervous. I look so different than she would remember. My jaw is messed up, and I have the teeth of a hockey player. Fortunately, I will qualify for healthcare insurance soon and be able to have it fixed. I lost weight that I haven't put back on, and I see an old man in the mirror. I'm also worried that I will get very emotional when I see her, and embarrass myself that way. I don't really cry in front of people. I'm not used to it, and this doesn't seem like a good occasion to start. Aside from not wanting to appear pitiful, I don't want her to feel forced to comfort me. If anyone has some advice on how to handle this, it would be much appreciated. Overall, this week could not have gone better, and I am extremely grateful to everyone who gave me the little push of courage I needed to send her that message. 1,000 times thank you. TLDR. I sent a message to my former partner. She was thrilled to receive it, and we have been happily getting to know each other once again. Edit. Just to clarify, she doesn't have a husband or kids. As I said in my first post, I only considered contacting her because there was no evidence of a partner on her social media. But I understand that my first post wasn't visible for a while, so I can see why that may not have been obvious. Sorry for the confusion. Update 2, March 23rd, 2023. I've had a lot of people ask for an update, so here it is. The last 2 months have gone by very fast. I told Daria that I was nervous about the video call, and she insisted on having it right away so that I could get it over with and stop worrying. Seeing her made everything feel real in a way it hadn't before. She still looks like herself, or even more beautiful, different only in the sense that she is fully an adult now. The place she lives is very different from our home country, with a distinct culture to which she has assimilated. That she had time to adapt and feel completely at home in this place broke the illusion that no time had passed. In hindsight, that was probably the real reason I had been so nervous, because I could no longer occasionally forget myself and pretend that nothing had changed. The hardest part was not being able to reach through the screen and put my arms around her. Sitting there and watching someone you love cry from a distance is not easy. I barely noticed that I was crying too. She didn't seem surprised at my appearance, but she did eventually look me over and ask if the food was shit where I lived. I explained about my jaw and that I'm getting it fixed. Less dental work is required than I thought, but I need a surgery. Her response was to ask for my address and order groceries to be delivered, including a lot of soft snacks that are easy to eat and these meal substitution drinks that are actually tasty. She's sent them every week since, even though I tell her it's not necessary. When I wanted to pay her back, she laughed at me and said she owed me a lot of food because I had kept her from starving to death in university. I loved being able to cook for her, and I suppose it makes her just as happy to feed me now. We talk every day, and have made video calls a regular habit. It does me so much good just to see her face, and the awkwardness is mostly gone now. It's easy to talk to her. Last night she brought her computer into the kitchen and talked to me while doing the washing up. It's amazing how mundane things like that can make me feel normal and at home in ways I forgot I could. I never thought I'd be that stupidly happy to see someone washing coffee cups. I'm beginning to think that the idea of home as a physical place is a misconception. She likes to send photos to show me where she lives, what her life is like now. She was curious about how things are the same or different here. I didn't want to admit that I don't have much of a life to share back. Going places just didn't seem worth the effort. She is, though. At first it was very small things. She would send a picture of a pastry she'd bought at a cafe, saying that she thinks her city has better pastries than mine. I would go out and get one so I could send her a photo too. Then it was beer, which city has better parks, interesting architecture, a department store, and so on. I figured out quickly that she was trying to coax me into going out more, but I played along to make her happy. I've seen more of my city in the past month than the entire time I've lived here before. I've been to the art museum and finally joined my colleagues for a beer. Usually I go places for short durations at the less crowded times, but I'm still going, which is something. Daria used to be very sociable, so I thought that whatever happened, at least she wouldn't be lonely. I was wrong. There is a lot she could never tell her friends because they can't relate. They would feel sorry for her and cease to be equals, she says. Our experiences are different, but we are more able to understand each other than other people could. And despite her own burden, she has quietly picked up half the weight from my shoulders without ever being asked to. I am in awe of her, simply for being the kind of person who would. For Women's Day, I sent her some orchids, and she was very happy that I remembered her favorite flower. The things I can do to make her smile are so small, and she deserves so much more than I know how to give her. But I would do anything for this woman, and I am learning. There are protests happening where she is, with riot police and tear gas. Whenever this happens, she feels nervous and has difficulty sleeping. Now at least I can stay on the phone with her at night so she's not alone. Aside from the anxiety, there is also a sense of nostalgia. She talks about when that was us, making noise in the street. I'm glad she has good memories, too, and doesn't have to be alone with them anymore. Finally, the reason I am updating now. She is coming to visit. We were talking last night, and I mentioned that a church near me has special windows designed by an artist she loves, and I was thinking about going to see them eventually. She said it would be unfair of me to go without her, so I invited her to come with me. And then somehow it turned from vague future plans to being scheduled for next Saturday. She was going to come for the day, but I told her it was silly to travel so far to stay for such a short time, and suggested she stay the entire weekend. So she will be here from Friday until Sunday. I haven't really had time to be nervous yet, but I'm sure I will. Thank you again to everyone who has given advice or encouragement. It is very much appreciated. Story 6. My BF, M25, won't ask for my hand, and my dad, M48, is staging a family boycott my wedding. Is my boyfriend being selfish? I've been with my boyfriend, M25, for 3 years. We both just finished school and are finally ready for marriage. He proposed last week, and I happily said yes. I could not be happier. I love him, and he is going to be an awesome dad someday. But my BF is very new school, and my dad is kind of old school. My dad was beyond mad that my boyfriend did not ask my dad for my hand before proposing. My dad said he was willing to hear my boyfriend's apology if my boyfriend formally asks for my hand at a dinner that my dad said he will pay for at the restaurant of my boyfriend's choosing. My dad feels like he is being very accommodating. He will bring my boyfriend's favorite wine to celebrate. I spoke to my boyfriend last night, and he won't budge. He doesn't believe in that tradition. My boyfriend showed me an article online where a Pakistani woman was stoned to death outside a courthouse because she married a man against her family's wishes. This just happened. My boyfriend, who witnessed his father be abusive, possessive with his mom as a child, has always felt strongly that women are not property. He thinks the tradition of asking for her hand is repulsive. His point is that he's met my whole family and gotten to know them. He says they have always known his intentions, and he never made it secret that he was in love with me and wanted to marry me and have children. He feels he was done enough to announce his intentions, and all of them seem to approve of him. He says that at this point he only needs my approval to marry him and nobody else's. So yesterday my mom told me that my dad, who is not even speaking to me because I won't set my foot down with my boyfriend, is calling the whole family and telling them to not attend my wedding. My mom says that my boyfriend is the one treating me like property by not letting me have a say in his decision to not observe a tradition that my two older sisters' husbands observed. I told my mother that I understand where my boyfriend is coming from and that I have decided to do away with the tradition of him asking for my hand. So my mother is obviously mad and said that I should be ready for serious consequences. I asked her what, and she would not say. But from talking to my sister, she said that they would blackball us from all family gatherings. My two sisters and my mom have told me my boyfriend is being selfish. The wedding is set for August 9th. I'm worried that nobody in my family will attend my wedding. Edit. I'm getting some comments about my boyfriend asking for my parents' blessing instead of permission or hand. I just can't see the difference. There might be one, but I don't see it. Is there a big difference? Da-dee-dar, my boyfriend won't ask my dad for my hand in marriage, and my parents is having my family boycott my wedding and threatening other consequences. Relevant comment. OP. Thanks for the congrats and comment. I was just thinking as I read some comments here. One comment said that my parents should not have staged the boycott either way. So maybe the boycott signals something more than just my father wanting to be included in some way. I don't know. I'm now worried that the boycott and calling all my relatives signals more controlling issues that my dad has that I never noticed before. My two older sisters had no problems with their wedding because they did everything the way my dad liked. So I'm scared now that maybe my boyfriend is right that it's not just a tradition. Deleted comment. My dad feels like he's being very accommodating. No, both he and your mother are being controlling. And they are attempting to make you choose between your fiancé and them. Choose your fiancé. Otherwise, you're setting precedent for this type of behavior, interference for the rest of your marriage. OP. This is what I'm afraid of. My fiancé and I don't practice Catholic religion like my family does. So I wonder what will happen when my kids aren't baptized and all that. Pastanazgul. You two need to have a discussion about how the children will be raised religion-wise now before you have the child. Just advice from someone who learned the hard way. OP. We did. We don't want religion in our children's lives. We decided that education is going to be the focus, and they will make their own minds up about religion once they are educated adults. I grew up Catholic, but I don't want that for my kids. My husband grew up somewhat Christian, and he still believes in God, but he doesn't want religion to be a part of our family either. We have talked this subject to death. You're right, it's very important. I realize we might change our minds later, who knows? But my family doesn't know about this. I have a feeling after this boycott that my parents will stage another one when they find out we won't be Catholic. Update June 24, 2016. The wedding went on as planned. My parents stuck to their guns and boycotted. One of my two sisters attended and is now happily blacklisted from our family. Nobody else from my entire family showed up, including my two brothers. The wedding was a little unconventional. My sister walked my husband down the aisle, and then his sister walked me down the aisle. I wanted this because my SIL actually introduced us and helped me get my first date with him. There was no question about who gives away the bride or even about objections. It was normal other than that. There has been no contact between me and my family other than my one sister. My mother has made it a point to send me a card every time that they have a family gathering for holidays or birthdays at their house to let me know that my father says I'm not invited. I get one almost every month. I don't even read them anymore. I just toss them. I don't know why they keep sending them because I've made no effort to contact them. And I live over 3 hours away, so it's not like I will run into them by accident. The reason I came back to post this here is because some people here made a prediction that came true, that they would come crawling back when we had children. I am now expecting our first child, a girl. She will be the first grandchild for my parents. My parents found out about the pregnancy a few months ago through a family friend. They didn't waste any time in making demands, not requests, demands. My boyfriend and I are not religious, but I had a Catholic upbringing. I don't practice at all by choice. My mother called me back in April telling me that my father wanted our daughter's middle name to be his mother's first name. I said no. My father was listening in on speaker, so I went ahead and told them that they were officially uninvited from all birthdays, graduations, and any other important dates in her life. My father called me half an hour later, crying and begging me to come stay with them for the birth so my mother could care for me. I said no. He also said that he had already made arrangements for his priest could baptize her at his church, but that I needed to agree to naming her after his mother if I wanted this to happen. He said he'd already planned a big celebration for the birth and the baptism that he was paying for. I said no to all of it. He went from meekly trying to sweet-talk me to raising his voice at me, and I hung up. He called a couple of more times to apologize for losing his temper, and again begged me to reconsider giving birth at a hospital near them so they could visit us. He denied having any knowledge of my mother sending me cards to uninvite us to any family functions, and even said that he specifically asked her to invite us, but he was told I declined every time. He lets my mom do the dirty work so he can later hide behind her and deny he had any knowledge. He's done this since I was a little girl. He does this every time he wants to drop the hammer on somebody, but be the good cop also. He'll never change. He denied having any knowledge of why anybody in the family missed my wedding. I told him our daughter would not be baptized or Catholic at all. No offense to Catholics. I told him he was too manipulative and controlling and I didn't want my daughter exposed to that. He's too toxic and just venomous. Coincidentally, the day, and for several days after that phone call, I got tons of calls and emails from my brothers, their wives, my sister, and all my aunts. They all wanted to apologize for missing my wedding, and all had specific excuses and wanted to make plans to be there for my daughter's birth. I banned them all from her life until she's old enough to decide for herself to let them in. My husband was a little surprised and not sure about banning everybody forever. He's more leaning toward supervised visits if they want to drive to us. My dad has been calling him like crazy, but we are a united front. My husband is deferring to me, but giving me ideas as to how I can give a little if I decide to. But with my family, there's no giving a little. They want it all. For now, they're all banned. I will reconsider when the youngest of our children turns 18. For now, my dad will have to settle for sucking up to my husband while I stick to my guns. Unlike him, I don't mind owning my decisions even if it means I'm bad cop. I'm not ready to give up a relatively drama-free, stress-free life to allow my dad and all his sheep back into our lives. Nobody in my family showed up to our wedding other than one of my sisters. Everyone is banned from our lives. Relevant comment. Downvoted commenter. He should have just done such a small task and asked, like, to make peace, geez. I mean, really pushing your family away for such a stupid reason. On their side and yours. Oh, opa. But that's the thing. After that one small task, they would want to name my daughter, another small task. Then they would ask I go have the baby near them, another small task. Then have her baptized by their priest. Then they pick her school. Then they make life decisions for her like they tried with me and my siblings. All small tasks. OOP replying to a downvoted comment that things have gone too far and to make amends for their daughter. I guess I would tell you that not everything fits in the oversimplification in your comment. My daughter will be better off without a full family of manipulative, controlling, and abusive people, or people who condone such behavior. After years of abuse, I was glad my husband decided my dad's demand that he ask permission to marry me was too antiquated. The original conflict that caused this rift was years of abuse and manipulation. I chose to burn bridges that needed to go. Otherwise, I would never be free to make my own decisions about my own life without consulting with my dad at every turn. Story 7. My 23F sister, 25F, and friends, 20s, talked about how I'm not good enough for my boyfriend, 25M. They don't know I heard and I don't know what to do. Firstly, my sister and this group of friends are what I would consider my closest friends. I love this girls to death. I literally tried to donate a kidney for one of them. I am 100% heartbroken. My BF is an amazing guy, kind, funny, smart as hell, and pretty much a model. He's just gorgeous. And asexual. This isn't a problem to me, and we worked it out. He's also very open to it, and everyone knows, which I entirely support. We were supposed to hang out a week ago, but after spending about half an hour, his job called him and he had to leave. This didn't bother me a lot, BC. I had a killer headache and went home. My sister and I share an app to save money, and we have a year-long lease, so I guess I'm screwed. Long story short, I closed my door, didn't light up, and got a nap. Next thing I know, I wake up to my sister voice. She and those friends were at our house. From what I heard, they were going to a club and were drinking a bit, waiting for the others. I didn't get up, BC. I was lazy and would have to put pants. Then they started talking about me. I'm not proud, but I was curious. They were talking about how they couldn't believe I was dating my BF, how he was too good for me, how I was too ugly to get a guy like him. My sister then started telling how being asexual is obviously an excuse to not have sex with me. I'm not pretty, and while it does makes me insecure, I know I have other good characteristics, but it was very hard hearing that. They also made fun of my learning disability. They call the R word, which I can't even fucking write it. That I wasn't even financially stable, made fun of my job. They said I had to beg to be fucked. All of my friends laughed and all of them shit-talked me. I was crying pretty hard at that point. They left and I didn't know what to do. I went to bed and basically made myself scarce this week. I get up earlier, get home later, or stay at my BF. I have answered their messages but was somewhat cold. I know I have to talk with them, even if it's to just cut off contact, but I can't open my mouth right now. I feel so ashamed and sad. My BF is also worried, but I can't get what they said from my head. I know it's not true and my BF is asexual, but I feel like I'm not worth being with him. My sister is my best friend. I fucking told her how I feel too ugly and stupid to be with him. I showed her our messages and we spoke about his asexuality. I love her so much it hurts. I can't stand looking at her knowing she was saying those on my back, and that none of my friends said anything. I just don't know what to do. I could break my lease, I guess, even though it would be very expensive, but I don't know how to say why I'm doing it or how I can face them. I don't know if I should tell my BF. TLDR. My sister and friends mocked me for not being good enough for my BF. They don't know I heard them and I don't know what to do. Edit. I can't begin to explain how much you guys rock. Thank you so much for all the advice, support, and tough love. It has truly helped me and it warms my heart to see so many people taking their time to write to a stranger on the internet. I'm trying to respond to all the comments, but if I haven't, please know I have read it and then considered. I promise I will talk with my boyfriend tomorrow. We are going to his place and I'll probably just show him this post. Edit 2. Hey guys, again thank you so much for all the messages and well wishes. It truly made a moment of pain more bearable, and it made me feel better to know there are so many of those who care. I really need to sleep now, but will do my best to respond to the comments tomorrow. Thanks everyone. Update September 23, 2018. Hey everyone, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the messages and comments on my last post. It truly helped me get off the bed and face the day. I showed my BF the last post BC, I just didn't know how I could say it. He was very sad and disappointed, but being asexual, he has had his fair number of assholes. But he mostly felt angry for me and agreed with the majority of advices that I should confront her. We decided a letter would be the best choice since I actually write a lot of letters and it's not direct confrontation. I like writing letters for moments like letters for when the person is sad, happy, angry, scared, etc. So I do have some technique, but this was, with no doubt, the hardest things I ever wrote. I decided to go for the simple and blunt. Told her I heard what they said about me, and while I was willing to work on our relationship, I needed distance from her in this whole situation. I talked with my landlord, lady, and she was super sweet and had no problem breaking the lease. I offered to find someone to take up my place, but apparently she has someone that could use the room, so that's cool. I intended to pack and leave the letter on her bed, but she came home early and caught me. I basically said fuck it to myself and told her I heard them saying I wasn't good enough and calling me names. First, she tried to deny, which I wasn't having it. Then she tried to justify and say I was overreacting, but I just stared at her. Then she finally started to apologize and cry. At that moment, I actually thought we might be able to save the relationship, but then she started making herself the victim. The main points were, 1. I just can't understand how hard it is to be pretty, not even kidding. 2. I don't understand how she feels BC, I'm used at not being the best. 3. It's not fair I get a gorgeous BF who is completely out of my league while she's single. 4. She feels embarrassed when we go out together, and she has to tell people that my BF is actually mine, not hers. 5. She knows asexuality doesn't exist, and we're doing this just for attention. I just kind of froze. I wish I had said something, but I couldn't open my mouth. She then said she was going out to recover from our traumatic conversation, and left. I just packed the rest of my things and left the letters on her bed. I'm currently at my BF's place, but I'm looking for a free room that is not super far from my job. I also wrote and sent letters to my friends, and then blocked their social media contacts. I'm certain they'll find a way to approach me as we work close, but I can't give a fuck. Besides all of that, last Friday I had dinner with my parents. I gave them an edited version of what happened. BC, I don't want to talk about my sex life. And that I broke the lease, blocked my friends. They said I shouldn't be angry, BC, it was true, and that the first time they met my BF, they thought I was playing a prank. My dad then started saying I was being selfish by breaking the lease and, I shit you not, betraying my sister trust and that you don't do this with family. So yeah, I've been ignoring them since this happened, as well as my sister. Overall, I'm fine. I actually feel more tired than angry or sad. TLDR. Talked with my BF, it went well. Talked with my sister, didn't go well. Moved out, talked with my parents, they said I'm selfish. Relevant comment. Deleted comment. This is a little bit off topic, but I'm curious as to how your relationship dynamic works with your boyfriend. I don't know too much about asexuality. You mentioned you have a disability. So if it isn't too personal for me to ask, how does your relationship work? How do you go about a sex life? I don't mean to be offensive or nosy, so apologies in advance, I'm just curious. OP. Don't worry. Asexuality is a scale, like the hetero-gay. At one side you have the asexual and on the other the allosexual. Between you have different shades of gray. Some people don't feel sexual attraction but don't really care about having sex if it makes their partners happy. Some really don't want to do it. Some only feel sexual attraction for those they have an emotional connection. It's a very diverse community. As for the obstacles of dating an asexual man, I guess it mostly falls into what you consider a deal breaker. What are your needs, ECT? I can live without sex. I can live happy without sex. Again, it's about compromise. There are other things in my relationship that are more important to me than sex, and they are being met, so I'm happy. I guess it just goes down to if you can't date someone without sex, that's okay. If you can, that's okay too. The only wrong thing is to start shitting rules. OP on if her parents always treated her sister as the golden child. I checked it out some of the links people sent me and I believe they did things like having to give her my clothes if she liked them, or having to eat her food if she didn't want any more. I don't know, I can see how some of the things they did were terrible, but saying they were abusive sounds too extreme. Story 8. My 29M cousin, 34M, is acting increasingly inappropriate with my wife and mother of my 2 kids, 28F, who used to strip, sent her a love letter. 8 years ago, my cousin Joe was getting married. He invited me to his bachelor party. It was me and a bunch of his weird friends I was uncomfortable around. I spent the whole night nursing a beer waiting for it to end. Towards the end of the night, his best man, whose name I can't even remember, had 2 strippers come. I hated the idea, so I continued to nurse the beer while the girls entertained them. A week later, while I was at the gym, a pretty girl I couldn't quite place comes up to me and starts making small talk. I ask how I know her, and she says she was the entertainment at a party I was at. I was surprised by how different she looked compared to that night. Long story short, I end up asking her out. Her fake name is going to be Audrey. It turns out Audrey'd only been stripping for a few months. I believed her, but her friends have confirmed it. And she ends up quitting a few weeks after we start dating. I was clearly uncomfortable with it, and she didn't really like it. She's never been ashamed about it, but we haven't told anyone in our family about it, and Joe kept his mouth shut because I asked him to. She's still friends with some girls who still strip, and I think that some of my friends put 2 and 2 together, but haven't been rude or anything, just made the usual I'm jealous jokes. Anyways, we've had 2 great kids, a son, 5, and a daughter, 3, and we're thinking about having 1 or 2 more. Joe's always been super quiet around Audrey, probably because of how they met until recently, after his divorce. He started complimenting my wife's physical appearance, like every time he sees her. I've told him to lay off, but he hasn't so far. One incident in particular where he said something about kids not ruining her figure really pissed me off, and I bowed up on him, and he apologized, saying he was drunk. We were at a family barbecue. I calmed down and realized I wasn't going to beat his ass in front of my whole extended family and my kids. I told him not to talk my wife again. This has really come to a head where he sent my wife a love letter asking her to leave me and start a life with him. She sent a reply email just saying no, thank you. What do I do here? I love my family, I love my extended family, and I want her to be comfortable around them, and she can't be with Joe there. Audrey doesn't want me to tell my family he's making her uncomfortable because she's afraid Joe will let out the fact that she used to be a stripper. I told her I'd be okay with it, but she's pretty adamant on not wanting them to know. Another thing, Joe hasn't done anything that would require legal action. He'd been acting like a teenager with a crush, and my wife admitted that she doesn't feel like she's in any kind of danger. I told her that we need to watch him carefully, but I don't know if there is much we can do on this front. My wife has just been terrified he's going to tell my family. I've been there for her the best I can. She's afraid that one day our kids could find out if the whole family learns. I would love advice on this whole horrible situation. TLDR. I met my wife after she was stripped at my cousin's bachelor party. He's developed an infatuation with her, and she's afraid he's going to tell our family about her being a stripper after she rejected a love letter. I need to know what to do here. Relevant comment. Montaron 87 TD. Do you think your family will be terribly upset if they find out your wife used to do some stripping to pay her way through college? I'd say pull a David Letterman and beat your cousin to the punch. You just have to convince your wife of that. Maybe start with 1 or 2 you definitely trust and go from there. OP. My family is really religious. They've always been the hate, the sin, love the sinner kind of people, so I feel like they'd be kind, they're pretty accepting. I've talked to my wife about letting people know she's dead set against it. Update September 20th, 2014. Yesterday, my wife and I decided to show my parents Joe's email love letter. We learned a lot of things. Joe has apparently seduced another one, our cousin's wife, as well as his uncle's wife. Joe's uncle is only 5 years older than him. Both times he sent a love letter, and both times ignored them afterwards. I don't know why, but both of those couples are still together. All of them are religious, so maybe it has something to do with not wanting to get divorced. The reason Joe got a divorce was because he would not stop cheating on his wife. Joe came to his parents and the older family members, who I will refer to as the old guard, facetiously, and asked for help after being caught with the cousin's wife, saying he was sorry and that he had a problem. They decided to forgive him, but put rules in place. My parents knew about Audrey. Joe had told his mom, told my mom, her sister, my mom told my dad. Audrey started crying at 4, but my parents gave her a hug and told her they didn't care. It was great, and after some tears we went back to our house. A babysitter was watching the kids. My parents told me the old guard was going to talk to Joe. Apparently Joe told everyone there about Audrey by trying to say that her being around set him back. Everyone didn't know, except for my parents and Joe's parents. He claimed that she made the first move. He also said that he slept with her on Tuesday while I was at work. That was completely false, because I had started working from home a month ago. I was at home all day with my wife. Just to be clear, there's no way she has been having an affair with him. I think the longest we've been apart this month has been an hour when she gets groceries, and he claimed Tuesday was the first time. The fallout has been horrible. Apparently I was already the black sheep, not the fucking sexual deviant, because my family doesn't go to church. We've received various messages denouncing us, the worst being from the parents of Lisa. Lisa is like a sister to me. Her parents moved in with mine and we live together. Lisa turned 17 recently, and her parents aren't allowing her to be at our house anymore. She used to come over all the time. My wife is crushed. I've been holding her as much as I can, and I know our kids are making her feel better. But she told me that her worst nightmare came true. She still thinks going to my parents was the right idea, though. My parents are still supporting us. The younger group who aren't living with their parents won't cut us out. I've pretty much written off the rest of the family. I'll try to have my parents explain that she had nothing to do with Joe. But if they don't listen, they don't listen. Lisa also doesn't believe it, but besides a text saying that she doesn't want to stop being around us, we haven't heard from her. Where we showed my parents the letter, Joe had a history of seducing wives and ignoring them afterwards. Old guard in family confronted him. He told them she used to be a stripper and lied about her instigating. He also said they slept together, but I was with my wife when he claimed to. He didn't know I work at home. Whole family is pretty much torn up over this. My parents are still supporting me. Younger family members not dependent on their parents are also refusing to cut us out. Relevant comment? Did Joe really sleep with those other wives? O.P. No, he did sleep with them. Both women have admitted to it, according to my parents. I guess he got frustrated that he couldn't with mine. Can't_be_mine. Interesting how the stripper seems to have better morals than the holier-than-thous, huh? I'm really sad for your sweet wife that a great sack of donkey shit like Joe happened to her, but incredibly glad she has you in her corner. Story 9. I've F23 been in love with my best friend, M21, since I first met him. It's not going away, and I don't know how to deal with it because I have no idea if he likes me, and it's stopping me from meeting someone else plus 5-year update. Honestly, this is pretty straightforward. We met about 2 years ago, and I instantly crushed on the guy. I honestly thought our first few nights out were dates, up until the point he went on a rant about a girl he had a crush on after a few beers. At that point, my thought process was pretty much, okay, not dates, got it, and moved on with the intent of friendship. Except, funny thing, turns out he checks all my boxes. I've never gotten along with anyone this well. People are shocked to find out, or well, not anymore, but up until about a year after we became friends. We haven't known each other for years and years. We have the same humor, like the same games and TV shows, agree on politics, want the same things in life. All well enough to get along, but still with enough differences that we can have conversations about it. We discover bands together. We help each other with work and writing papers. I call him when I'm sad, and we both think it feels weird to not see each other for a week. Problem is, I'm completely head over fucking heels in love with the man, and it is starting to get to the point where I don't know what to do. I thought it'd go away, but every time I meet him, it's like I'm falling all over again. My friends have gone from teasing me about it to shooting me pitying looks whenever his name is brought up. My sister wants me to just stop seeing him. I go a week without talking to him, and I think I'm starting to get over it. But whenever I see him again, it all comes rushing back. I don't know what to do. It hurts, and it's not fun anymore. I've been on dates with some amazing guys who liked me, but my feelings for my friend is stopping me from falling for someone else. It's starting to feel pathetic, and at this point I see no good option. He's my best friend, the best I've ever had, and I just don't want to lose him. At this point I think asking him out would achieve that, since it's been so long since we met. I know the only way, for me personally, To get over someone is to stop seeing them, but I don't want to lose my best friend. The finishing touch keeping me on the hook are these asterisk looks asterisk he gives me. I've had other friends confirm he does this because I was honest to God starting to think I was losing my fucking mind. Whenever we're out in a group, at a party or the pub, whenever I look over at him, it seems he's always looking at me. And these eye contacts last asterisk way asterisk too long to be normal. Like a good 6-7 seconds of us just looking at each other across the table, or the room, or the bar. And he does this little smile. I've never seen it on him in any other situation. I don't know what it means. I have no idea why we do this or how it came to be, but it's the final fucking nail in this coffin of hopelessness I'm buried in right now. I don't know if I'm crazy and over-interpreting things, which is very likely, or if I should just give it a shot and ask him out, even though it might ruin the friendship, or just stop seeing him, or to just carry on and hope this feeling goes away at some point of the distant future. I'm so frustrated I want to cry, and have cried. A lot. I just don't know what to do here. TLDR, I'm in love with my best friend. It has become a huge problem in my life. When we've been drinking, he keeps looking at me in a way I'd describe as smitten if it were any other person. I don't know what to do to get out of this hole of constant heartbreak and misery, and how to be able to move on to other guys. Update November 13th, 2024. So, hello. A little over 5 years ago, I made a post on this subreddit looking for advice on how to handle my incredibly painful, unrequited love for my best friend. I'd honestly forgotten about this until making a password reset on another account and saw Tobbs13 among my email search results. But as I read through the post, I remember how very comforting and terrifying the responses to my post was, being a more or less unanimous "ask him out" that scared my ass to death. Sorry that this isn't really a happy update, but I don't know. It felt weird seeing something I wrote in what feels like a different life, and the people who responded seemed so genuinely kind and trying to help. I feel like I weirdly owe some kind of update, especially for that one dear sweet commenter whose account is now deleted. I so wish I'd have a way to reach out to them, because that was one of the most thoughtful comments I think I've ever gotten. And just to recap with hindsight, I really was in love with this man, and I had been for about 2 years, like full 9 yards in love, struggling to breathe when he talked about someone else but still cheering him on because he deserved happiness levels of in love. If that sounds a bit like obsession to you, then that's because it probably was. The thing about unrequited love, the thing that really sucks about it, is that it's incredibly hard to move on from. But until you do move on, your brain keeps obsessing about it to the point where it can be impossible to get anything done. It had been 2 years of that when I made that post. 2 years of pining and pain and an ever-growing pile of crushed hopes, and I think I was going a little bit insane, constantly swinging between butterflies and love highs when I was with my friend, and the crushing feeling of rejection every time he'd say goodbye, and the obsession over things like how long he'd look at me, how long he'd let a hug last, how fast he'd respond to my texts, things which could either make or break my entire day depending on what the answer was. On to the actual update after that primer. About a month and a half or so after I made that post, still trying to hype myself up to actually ask this man out, I accidentally became a head organizer for an event at the university I was studying at for the moment. Long story short, the person managing me was not kind. I was extremely overworked from the event on top of writing a thesis. I was equally stressed out in my private life due to the whole situation with my best friend, and I ended up going through a pretty severe case of burnout. Add on to everything that I developed an addiction to alcohol to try to handle everything, and was also experiencing what was most likely a drug-induced paranoid psychosis, and I was a mess. I ended up moving back in with my dad in September, and spent about a year doing nothing but sleeping, crying, playing Skyrim, and going to rehab and therapy. Start of 2021, I went back to school and slowly recovered. I've been sober since 2020. The paranoia hasn't completely gone away, but it's more manageable. I used to think my landlord listened to me through a radon measurement device, and at least that's over. And I think I've got a work-life balance figured out that helps me not overwork myself or go into free time lethargy because I've got too much time off. It was long and painful, but I did it. If you're wondering where my best friend was in all of this, I honestly don't know. I went back to look at our text messages, and from what I can see, he tried to call me a few times in early September. I didn't respond, and then nothing until around Christmas when he wondered if I wanted to meet up sometime. I said yes and then never followed through. He hasn't texted me since January 4th, 2020. Now, to be clear, I don't blame him for not reaching out more. My non-responding is what killed that friendship. I know, because it also killed every other friendship I had at the time. I don't know, alcohol addiction, deep depression, and crippling paranoia may be a fair explanation to one day stop responding to any of your friends, but I still deeply regret those choices. If I were to make a relationships post today, it would be on how the fuck you word an apology after behavior like that 5 years down the road. Sorry. I feel like this is starting to become a journal. I'm going to stop my reflections there. So, about my love for my best friend, with some years of hindsight and therapy behind me. I don't think I was in love with him. I think I was in love with the idea of him, and I think I was obsessed for sure, but looking back, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think a part of me really liked the fact that this was a person who so clearly wasn't interested in me. Genuinely, if he was, that would shock me to find out, because he spent 2.5 years ignoring the, in hindsight, very obvious attempts I made to deepen the relationship. Some examples include him saying he's waiting for the right person, me responding, "Sometimes I feel like I already have. Do you ever feel like that?" And him going, "Nah, I don't think so." Me following that up with, "Maybe you just don't know. The heart is weird sometimes." And him going, "I'm pretty sure I'd know." One time we talked about why people fall in love, and I genuinely tried to convince him a deep friendship was all you needed, while he insisted that there needed to be a level of sexual attraction as well. I tried to get him to do that 36 questions that will make you fall in love thing with me. I kept trying to find excuses to hold his hand. Rest in peace, my palm-reading career. You were nothing but a thinly veiled attempt at finger-touching, and him resolutely never going along with it. Ditto, but with hugs, arm-touching, and sitting just a little too close whenever we went out so I could hear him better, which he normally responded to by going, "We should go outside so you can hear better if it's too loud in here." Very thoughtful, but very much not what the goal was. One night, when we were alone in my apartment after a club event, after a particularly long shared look, I asked him what he was thinking about in that kind of, I don't want to break the illusion soft voice you put on when you're really fucking close to someone you like, and his response was, "I don't know if I agree that Gertz's metaphor about blinking makes that much sense, actually." For context, we'd bickered about that earlier in the night since we'd just read some article about it in class. I did not expect it to make a comeback at that point. Another night, when we were out together and there had been a lot of looks and closely leaned in laughing together, and he pulls me to one side by the hand to talk to me about something, heart racing, only to ask me if I know if one of my friends is single because he thinks she's really fucking cute and might have been looking at him all night. Looking back, at least some of this stuff is sort of funny. I have no idea if he knew or knows now that I was in love with him. I wouldn't be surprised if some of my old friends eventually told him, but of course he's never reached out about it. But yes, I think I kind of like the security of this person who clearly didn't like me back. Not that I was doing well with the heartache, but there's a certain kind of fucked up comfort that comes from pining for someone who doesn't want you back. Like the highs I'd get when I got something that felt like confirmation made up for the lows of crying in my apartment stairway when I got home after a denial. Today I mostly just feel so bad for him and ashamed of myself, regardless of whether he knew or not, and I'm trying to cling to the fact that he seemed to at least continue wanting to be friends as some indicator that he never felt creeped out or uncomfortable. My behavior was pretty fucking creepy. And in the end, once I did get that distance between us, the feelings went away after some 6 months or so. My therapist recommended not meeting this person again for my own sake, and by early 2020 I wasn't so painfully in love anymore. A while later I'd end up meeting a guy I clicked with just as much, who actually liked me back and showed it. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and are talking about starting to try for kids at some point soon. He'd like us to get married first, but is also insisting he wants to be the one to propose, so I'm just walking around waiting for the day. Even if it's not a huge surprise or secret, he just wants to get that moment of going down on one knee, and who am I to deny him? I'm slowly growing old and boring. I'm sober. I go to my boring, stable middle-career 9-5 job. I save for my retirement and traveling on the summers. I help my dad out on his farm. I crochet little animals for my newborn niece. I come home to a man who plays his silly video games. I play my silly video games. We go for walks and to the museum and bicker about whether to get fat on takeout or not. I have some regrets about how my early 20s ended up playing out, but by God, I wouldn't want to go back. TL, did he? I didn't ask him out. Instead, I had a severe mental health crisis. Stopped talking to all my friends, got sober, crawled my way back, and now looking back, I'm surprisingly happy with how life turned out. Oh, and I genuinely did not exaggerate those looks. I remember them very clearly and once had a mutual friend comment on it. I still have no idea what was up with those. He doesn't strike me as a person who would try to keep someone on the hook or anything. More like he was just painfully socially oblivious. But I still wonder so much about those goddamn looks, man. Story 10. Grown man ruining my son's life. Help me ruin his. Hello, and thank you in advance for your creativity and time. I'm living in hell right now and need ideas. My son just turned 18 and is disabled. He needs and takes multiple medications and needs support at school. He does well in some settings and is on track to graduate and pursue trade school with support, and we're so proud of him. He is extremely impressionable, a little socially awkward, and desperate for friends. For years we've struggled because he gives his possessions away, gets in bad situations, someone offering to sell him rocks at a park, him thinking they are collectible polished gemstones, so he asks to see them, and then freaks out when he realizes they're drugs, and is easily bullied. He will do anything to be liked, which breaks my heart. And we're working on it in therapy, with trusted adults, etc. The grown man. This guy is 28 years old. Let's call him Quentin. He's frequently homeless, often sleeping in a tent in parks. Or he'll get a voucher from our city to stay in a motel. He has 2 pit bulls, not spayed or neutered, that he will leave in the tent or motel room when he works at a fast food job. I actually have compassion for him and his animals, if he had nothing to do with my son. It started with him asking my son to watch his dogs in the park while he worked. My son is so thrilled to have a friend and be helping, and he does love animals. So he will spend 8+ hours a day or night alone in a park, watching these dogs. He would ask, can he take dog food, toys, and blankets from our house for Quentin's dogs? He does it whether we say yes or no. Months ago, we would say yes because I appreciate that my son wants to help these dogs. Starting a few months ago when my son turned 18, Quentin told him he didn't have to stay with us and could stay with him. For weeks our son was sleeping in the tent with the dogs or rough in the park. Quentin gives him beer and weed. Our son will watch the dogs for entire shifts while he works. Quentin tells him he will help him get a tent and vouchers too. The police are sympathetic, especially because my son has disabilities and also some medical issues, but he is 18. School is supportive, but he's almost to graduation, and again, he's 18. We had not ever pursued medical conservatorship or anything like that because before now lots of things were going right and we don't take that lightly, removing civil liberties from another young adult. In the past week, Quentin got another room at the motel. He messaged my son to come stay with him, and he did. My son sat in the room and watched his dogs while he worked, and I imagine they smoked and hung out when Quentin was not working. My son would respond to text messages from us but asserted he is an adult and can go where he wants. He missed a week of medication, school, part of his part-time job, and another important appointment. Being Quentin's friend is more important than all of these things, and he feels good helping his friend and says, Quentin is like a brother to me. He's the best brother I've ever had. Quentin's own family have kicked him out. They are nearby. No idea who watches the dogs when my son is not available. Quentin doesn't drive, and earlier this week my son gave Quentin his bike because he needs it more than me. Our son came home yesterday and had a complete psychiatric crisis because he's been unmedicated and probably also high drinking, for so many days. His medical issues are exacerbated. He was banging his head on the concrete floor, and when we called emergency services, he spit at the police, so they put a spit hood on him and restrained him. It was horrific, and he was begging for help. We're not sure when he will be stable enough to come home and may need a medical procedure. He was coherent today, crying, apologizing, but still 100% certain Quentin is his friend. I also feel terrible because I know that at age 18 it's a good thing for my son to be not telling us everything, having his own friends and life, etc. I look forward to that day. He does have other friends who are closer to his age, and their hanging out is more appropriate. But these other kids have busier lives and more responsibilities. They aren't available 24/7. Quentin is, and my son feels so good when his phone pings and it's his friend, needing him. How can I make this man's life miserable? Or at least make it too uncomfortable or risky to keep hanging out with my son? Nothing to harm or stress the dogs, please. It's not their fault, and my son would never forgive me. Some of OOP's comments. OOP responded to all of them on May 9th, 2024, 4 days later. Commenter: sounds like you might need to pursue medical conservatorship, which I know you don't want to do. But it sounds like you definitely have grounds, and it's the lesser of two evils at this point. I don't see things ending up well without intervention. OOP. Thank you for this, and others who prompt me to reconsider conservatorship. I called a lawyer on Monday. I had already done research and collected that info, but had a lot of hope that once sheltered work started up and he had less free time, it might not be necessary. Commenter: pay someone to be your son's friend that's more of a caretaker. Honestly, this guy sounds at the very least like a scammer. Sometimes the only way people into deep in one scam is a second scam. It's sad, but there's literally a bot on RE, scams for recovery scams. Basically, people promising to recover your loss for some fee. It's not great, but if you could afford someone to offer better friendship and then point out that his old friend is lame, it'll be like positive peer pressure. Maybe help the person could help them join appropriate opportunities for new friendship, then phase out. OOP. This is another great idea, and I appreciated the comments below it here in the thread. I have reached out to some young adults older than him that might serve as mentors or fitness coaches. Hang out with him, work out, play basketball. Build positive connections with people who don't wish him ill. Thank you for this. I have a few possibilities here in our area. Commenter: if it was my son, there's nothing I wouldn't do to ensure his safety and well-being. My advice would be to just make this man's life miserable. Contact his work and make complaints against him. Tell them he's selling weed or is abusive to customers. If he has a room, report him for dealing drugs and threats of violence. If he stays in the park, phone the police and claim his dogs are attacking people in the park. All anonymously, of course. Maybe nip down to the park late at night and set off a shitload of fireworks near to his tent. Do this over and over again. Make it your life's mission to ruin him. He'll move on when it all gets too much. My son is autistic too, and him being taken advantage of is a great worry for me. I hope it all works out for you. OOP. Thank you for this. I did contact his employer because my son isn't the only teen in the neighborhood Quentin is giving alcohol to. I also contacted management at his motel where he occasionally stays to let them know this person was letting a vulnerable teen stay there, and miss school and meds, and that it was surely against their policy. Quentin was not happy I contacted his work and the motel. I felt really empowered by so many of the comments here to engage around this and make his life more difficult. Get son a dog. Yes, and great insight to others who mentioned maybe getting my son a dog. He actually has a medical alert service dog and other pet dogs and cat and fish, so animals are truly a special interest of his. Heartbreakingly, he will leave service dog with us because the dog is safe and we love them, but Quentin's dogs need him. But yes, we lean on the gifts he has with animals to build other areas of his life. Talk to the police again. I just spoke to the local police again tonight. Sometimes they lean heavily on, he's 18, he's an adult. But some of them, when they get to know him a bit, realize he's vulnerable and are more willing to help. Keeping him busy? Yes. Son has an interview tomorrow at an animal adoption center. This is the type of setting that would keep him busy. Help him feel like he's doing something important, and give him better adults to be around. Commenter, get rid of the dogs. Go on Facebook and post how they are being abused, and an intervention must take place. Get rid of the tent. Is he camping illegally? Call the cops. Get rid of Quentin. He's not good for anyone right now, not even himself. A major intervention is 100% necessary for all parties involved, for the police, for you, and for your son. There is so much to lose with inaction. OOP, I did part of this evening. Son got home from hospital last night, back on meds, stable, goes to his special interest class at school, does great, goes for bike ride. Lo and behold, he's back out with Quentin and the dogs. It's after 10 p.m., so park is closed. Quentin is pitching the tent. I called the non-emergency line to let the police know a homeless man with 2 pit bulls was sleeping in that park near the playground. Police went and moved him, sent Son back to us. I will keep doing this. I might also flyer homes near the park to let them know there's a homeless man with 2 pit bulls who provides alcohol and weed to teens in the park near their home, to help make it less comfortable for him to be there. Thank you for this advice. Commenter, you could see if Quentin would accept cash and a bus ticket to leave town. It would be the least messy way to disentangle him from your son. Or if you can round up a group of scary people and a van. A different kind of ride out. I appreciate and applaud the autonomy you've given your son, but it's time for his own sake. Oh, so OP. Thank you for this. I did go find Quentin after seeing this advice and offer him cash to leave Son alone and stop taking his calls. He refused and promptly told Son that I had offered. He also told my son I'm too attached to him. Block the number on Son's phone. Thank you for these. Yes, we've blocked his number in the past and given Son an old flip phone when smartphone was too much to manage healthily, but Quentin doesn't even always have a phone. They video chat on Instagram. They also can borrow anyone's phone, log into Insta, and communicate. Go with him to every hangout. I loved this advice to crash every hangout. I started doing that tonight. Quentin was so mad. He told me I'm harassing him. He finally walked off and told my son not to follow him. Son is mad at me and parroting that Quentin says I'm too attached. Fine with me. I can do this every day. Great advice. A update post, September 16th, 2024. A few months ago, I came here asking for tips to help get a man named Quentin out of my son's life. I'm super grateful for all of the ideas and many kind words. As of today and for the last 3 months, my son is happy and healthy. We found a transitional living house for him with 5 other young men and 2 house managers, and a dog. He's learning to adult, learning to cook, clean, and get a job. It includes therapy, gym every day, yoga, skateboarding, truly a dream come true. The house is about 40 minutes away from where Quentin lives, and my son feels he has friends, is purposeful and feels adult, and is learning and busy. They will also do job training. Before this happened, I took as much of your advice as was possible. I contacted the manager at Quentin's workplace and the motel he occasionally stays at. I told them Quentin was allowing a disabled teenager to stay with him and giving him, and other teens, alcohol. Manager is local small business owner and took my information seriously. I also went to motel and pointed out the sign that said all guests must have ID. My son does not. I told manager I hoped he was abiding by rules or I'd contact corporate. I also started calling non-emergency PD line when he was camped after park closing time and leaving his dogs during the day. PD would move him along. Someone had the great advice of being his best friend and showing up all the time. So I did. Quentin wants to see my son. Hey, here I am too. I'm at the park, I'm at your work, I'm near the motel. I even prepared flyers to let others in the park neighborhood with a playground for small children know about the tent, camping, and unsupervised, unneutered pit bulls. Quentin got increasingly upset. He said I was stalking him and he was going to call the police. I said politely, please do. I'd love to tell the police more about what you're doing with my son and other vulnerable young people. I told him, you want to be in my son's life. I'm in your life. Up to you. Up to, I really felt bold after all of your advice and encouragement. I was willing to keep going for the long haul. In the meantime, we found a lawyer, and I started tapping into resources to find my son some kind of job training because he really wants to help and feel grown up. For a few weeks, he was working at a drugstore through a program through a local agency. That was huge for him, stocking and cleaning and helping people. It also kept him busy for about a month and kind of removed Quentin slightly. Quentin either got sick of seeing me or afraid of losing his job. The location of the motel he had been staying at occasionally stopped letting him, so he had to start using another location much farther away, farther to walk to work and harder to deal with. I think he realized my son wasn't worth the trouble I was causing, and just stopped contacting him. Thank you so much for all of your ideas. I was so focused on trying to fix it from my son's end, as his mom, I had no idea how to actually deal with Q. You all were fantastic. Huge thanks from the mom of a happy, healthy, busy, and purposeful young adult son. Some comments. Commenter, glad things in your situation are going in a positive direction, but wondering why you have to mention unneutered pit bulls in such a negative context. I'm 100% about spay and neutering all animals right now, 'cause this country is in a crisis with the homeless pet population, but I feel like your statement wasn't mentioned because of the same reason. OOP. Absolutely. Thank you for naming that. I'm also worried about the animals. One reason I struggled at first with what to do is if my son weren't a factor, I would feel drawn to helping Q and his animals, or at least pointing him to resources for that. I have colleagues who work for organizations who help those without homes to stay with their pets, often their family. Since I wrote the first post, one of these dogs has had puppies. I also tried to help my son realize that he wasn't responsible for the dogs, and it was a hard life for all of them, until it became clear how in danger my son was. I guess I mention it as another example of how the adult in the situation was not being responsible, and how the untended dogs were not safe for themselves or other unfixed animals who might come into the park. For me, the state of the animals is also sad, and one reason my son was so compelled to help, which is a negative. I feel for them thought and never wanted to harm or scare them. Traditional Plan 7423. For anybody in Houston TX that may see this, I work for a nonprofit, Sir Jobs. We offer training and licensure to youth, young adults, and veterans, financial literacy assistance for everybody. Our goal is long-term financial stability through training and job placement and financial education. We are completely funded by federal, state, city, and private donors. All classes, certifications, and licensure are completely at no cost to you, the member. Please look us up. Please donate if you find it something that you support and help us to continue our mission. Sir Jobs for Progress in Houston, Texas. Find us at sirjobs.org and on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and any other platform I missed. We have community events that you can participate in and help us continue to serve anybody who wishes for a brighter future. ETA. Sorry if it may sound like taking T-Tenarian from OP, but our services are helping many in this situation, and we will do anything it takes to see our members succeed. I may just be admin in accounting, but I wholeheartedly believe in our organization and mission. OP, thank you. Amazing. Yes, an org like yours is helping us immensely, and I am so grateful others can help my son and I can be his mom. Thank you for your time and work. Story 11. Weebta. My lab partner kept making fun of me for being short F20, so I called him 22 short and he got mad. I am a 5'1" female and my lab partner constantly makes fun of me for being short. For example, I came back from the bathroom and he said, "I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny." He also said that my hair is so big, it makes my head and me look even more tiny. I am not insecure about my height, nor does making fun of it offend me, but it's annoying and ironic because he's short too, looks 5'5". And yes, I know it might be because he's interested in me, but I don't find him attractive, so the teasing isn't cute, it's just very annoying. Last lab, I had enough of it and basically told him to shut up because he's like 5'5". He said he's not 5'5" and he's 5'9". I know I am very short, but he's definitely not over 5'7". We started arguing about it, so I told him I'll bring a measuring tape next class and we'll find out the truth. I started to feel a bit bad after because I know men are very insecure about their height. However, him obviously lying about his height and constantly making fun of me makes me in the mood to be petty. Will bringing the measuring tape make me the asshole? Edit. I accidentally put F22 in my title for my lab partner. To correct, I am female 20, and my lab partner that makes fun of me is male 22. More explanation as to what he says. Editor's note fixed the title of the Boru for clarity. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter? NTA? He's finally found someone shorter than him, and it makes him feel superior. If he can't take it, he shouldn't dish it out. OP, do you think me bringing the measuring tape will make me the asshole? Commenter, NTA, bring in the measuring tape and a big black Sharpie. Don't say a word to him. Go to the door frame and mark 4E, 5, E, and 6. Between the 5 and 6 foot marks, place the inches. Remember how parents used to measure kids' heights against the wall for door frame and leave marks for little Susie is so tall on October 31st, and Ben is so tall the same date. Don't say another word to him, just leave the measuring marks so he has to look at them every day as he passes by the chart. Keep direct eye contact with him whenever he walks by it. OP, I'm enrolling with laughter. Thank you for this idea. I'm definitely going to do this. I was planning on just measuring him, but the marks on the wall would be more accurate. I don't know if I would be allowed to draw on the wall with Sharpie, though. I may do it with a washable marker instead. Commenter, NTA, he shouldn't dish it if he can't take it. But I don't know that it'd help to escalate with the tape if you'll still need to work with him. Can you switch partners? OP, no, I can't switch my partner. This is my assigned partner for the rest of the semester. Thankfully, I only have 3 classes left. Commenter, downvoted. He's definitely trying to flirt with you, IMO. He wants to emphasize how small you are because it makes him feel bigger, and he's probably not used to that LOL. He wants to make it clear that compared to him, you're just cute and small. He's obviously insecure about his own height. I do think being short has wildly different implications for men and women, but it's not like you decided to do this after he made an offhand comment. You're clearly annoyed by this, and he's being disruptive and kind of desperate by not shutting the fuck up about it. Measuring tape might be the exact tool you need to show to him why this kind of shit is very bad for him, LOL. OP, I think so too. Which is why I was hesitant to say anything. I didn't want to make him more insecure. I don't think he means it in a harmful way, but it's just annoying because he mentions it every single lab. However, last class he kept making inappropriate comments about our other lab partner and I getting married and having babies. That really crossed the line for me. I gave him a death stare and told him to stop in all seriousness, because the comments he was making were just making things awkward and uncomfortable. He chose not to listen and keep going, thinking he was funny. After that, I lost all respect for him. Commenter, ha ha ha. I had a guy worked with once who insisted he was 5'8". I literally said we're the exact same height. And I'm 5'3 inches. Dude had the audacity to say someone had lied to me because I was obviously 5'7 inches or so. NTA, don't let their fragile masculinity bother you. Measure that boy. OOP, this is absolutely hilarious. This guy said the same thing, that I must be 5'5". So now I'm suddenly not short anymore. Huh, Elmau. The audacity of these men to lie by a whole 4 inches thinking people won't notice is just embarrassing. OOP adds a bit more from his bullying. I'll tell you what I told the other person who said the same thing. To clarify, he also said, I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny, when I got back because it took a while. He also said my hair is so big it makes my head and me look even more tiny. To add on, he repeatedly calls me shorty or brings up my race, saying my people are usually short. When I try to ignore him, he just keeps repeating the same thing to annoy me and get a reaction. I love being short, so there's nothing to be sensitive about. It's him being annoying and making these comments to someone he barely knows. All the while, he's also very short that bothers me. Oh, and I'm bringing the tape? Edit, same post later that day. I am planning to bring this 10 feet measuring tape, cut it at 7 feet, and taping it to the wall next to us before he gets there. Can't wait. I will update how it goes by Tuesday night. My class is Tuesday morning. Update. Same post. October 30th, 2024. Update. I got to class late because of traffic, so I didn't have time to tape it up. Also, there is no actual wall beside me, so nowhere I could really tape it. But I still measured him. I whipped my tape measure out and they started laughing at first because everyone knew what was about to go down. Before I measured him, he asked me what the margin of error is and said, "That thing is 2/3 inches off." We both knew. He lied at this point, lol. But I insisted to measure him, and at first he didn't want to get measured. I told him to take his shoes off. He said he didn't want to. I said I'm subtracting an inch from the measurement then. He was 5'7" with the shoes on, so without them he's actually a little less. Even after I clearly measured him, he kept denying it, saying it's wrong, that I measured him wrong, and the tape measure is incorrect. He then looked up, "How tall is 67 inches?" because he kept saying that must not be 5'7". I couldn't believe he kept denying it, even though I clearly just measured him. His friend, in the lab group across from us, is about the same height as him, and also lied about his height last time. So he was embarrassed too, because they both were obviously lying. I made a joke about how the top 2 inches must be invisible, and he wasn't too happy. Our lab TA, 6'2", came over and asked what the measuring tape was for. I told him it was to measure his height, pointing to my lab partner. I said he lied, and the TA started laughing too. Next week, I'm thinking of just taping the measuring tape at the door before class so they're always reminded of it when they walk in. There's really nothing more I can do. We both know he lied even if he doesn't admit it. Editor's note. Marked as concluded since OOP hasn't updated and proved her point. Everyone knows the kid was lying.